Welcome to the Lux Files, a podcast for occultists about occultists. I'm your host, Sean, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Lux Files wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on all the new episodes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 19 of the Lux Files. I'm your host, Sean, and with me today, I have magician, druid, mason, and teacher, Alessandro. Hello, Alessandro.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am excellent. How's the weather out there?
Oh, it's perfect California weather.
Is it? Like it's not like super hot or anything like that?
Yesterday it was about 82, which was pretty warm for us, but
Yeah.
it's nothing like the New York summers that I remember.
Right.
Awful.
Yeah. It's been
How's it
hot
where you
here.
are?
It's been hot here. We've had quite a few days where it's like hovering just below 100. And we have like over 100 forest fires around my city. So it's been like, and like this heat dome that's just sitting here, like the air is just still. So we have all this smoke and it's hot and the air is not moving. And we had a storm come through a couple days ago and it kind of blew out all the smoke, and that was nice, but that lasted like a day and the smoke was back. And the moon, a couple like before the storm, the moon was like super orange because of the smoke, and I'd never seen it. Like in the fall when it comes up and it, harvest moon, and it's kind of orangey. Well, this was orange, and like I've never seen that orange before. But then last night I went outside and it was almost like a neon orange. It was so intense because of the smoke. So yeah, it's bad, and my yard is crap, and all of my flowering plants are they're not
Like,
flowering.
what the hell's going on? Yeah,
they're done, and it really sucks. So yeah, so that's great. So my message to the listeners and the viewers is use more oil, because apparently that's what you should be doing, because that's working great. So yeah. So
I remember a couple years ago we had our fires here, and there was a day that it was dark all day. It looked like from Blade Runner or something like that. It was just this totally otherworldly. It felt like you were on Mars.
Right.
It was it wasn't. Yeah, so weird. We'll probably get a little taste of what you're experiencing sometime this fall, because that's California seasons these days.
Yeah, probably. And on that happy note, it's funny because a couple, like when I first started my podcast, the conversation always started with like COVID, like how are you coping, what's going on there? And now it's basically shifted I don't know, the past couple of episodes, it's been how's the weather, is your neck of the woods burning down like my neck of the woods? And so it's great. So from pandemic to the world being on fire. So
it's fun when you have both at the same time, then you can't go inside or outside.
Right, it's like I'm just gonna dig myself a hole and become a mole person. That's what I was trying to think of, a mole person. So yeah, I think that's actually kind of preferable to civilization anyways. All right, so enough about the crappy stuff. We're here to talk about you.
About me?
Yeah. Your entire life, every single detail. I'm just kidding.
That might be a little boring.
Well, let's focus on the fun stuff. So what I do with every guest is I get them to start by recounting the experience or the series of events that kind of led them into their spiritual magical path. So that's always a fun place to begin. So Alessandro, take it away.
Well, my mom likes to talk about how when I was in utero, she was reading Magic by Aleister Crowley. And so that kind of set the tone from before I was even born. So I was, I was raised with this stuff. I mean, frankly, my mom initiated me into what we called Wicca back then because we didn't know the difference between Wicca and witchcraft.
Right.
When I was, as like my version of a bar mitzvah or confirmation, when I came of age.
How long had she been practicing, like before that?
I don't know. I mean, there was always something a little witchy, I think, even, like my grandmother, she was an astrologer, like not professionally, but she just did everyone's charts back in, in the old days before computers, when that was like hard to do.
Right. Yeah.
She had she had a whole, she had ephemeris every year. And there was a dream that she had that she told my mom, this is, obviously a long time ago, where she dreamt that my mother was flying around the room, and she thought, I wish I could do that, but I can't because I'm Christian.
Interesting.
So yeah, that was sort of my background coming,
Interesting. So so your mom initiated you into Wicca or maybe witchcraft, whatever. So you said like your version of a bar mitzvah. So like you were young?
I was like 12. Yeah.
Okay. And what was that like? What did you think? I mean, I guess in a certain sense that was normal for you, but what was that like as a 12-year-old being initiated into a mystery tradition?
I mean, it was great. It was I don't remember the details of it much. I remember I received a sword, which I still have.
Okay.
I remember there was a period prior to that when my mom did try to raise me Catholic. And because she actually had for her, Catholic was very magical. Catholicism was very magical.
Yeah.
And so she wanted me to have that experience. And so she sent me to Catholic school. I hated it. It was awful.
Right.
And there was one point when I was probably about 10 that I was like, and I knew that she didn't go to church, and I knew that she was into this witchcraft thing. And I was like, I don't want to be Christian. I want to be what you are. That looks like a lot more fun. So she said, okay. And I started going to a secular private school, and she, answered my questions and let me read her books. And I remember I was reading, Manly Palmer Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages and trying to make sense of it. And I asked her, like, what's a Mason? and she said something, I don't remember exactly all that she said, but one thing she said that stuck with me was, she said, if I were a man, I probably would have become a Mason. And so I felt like, well, I had to, because it was like my duty.
Okay.
And so that was, another one of those that was probably when I was like 11 or something like that, around that same time. So it was very much by choice. Like I even though it was around me, it was not, I was not necessarily expected to go that path, but that was what I saw. And I was like, that was much more appealing to me than what the church was offering.
Was she raised Roman Catholic?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. It just kind of sounded strange that she's a Wiccan, and she's like, oh, I'm going to put you through Catholic school, and that just seemed like, and yes, Catholicism is very magical, but that just seemed a bit of a disconnect. But with her being raised Roman Catholic, then in a way that's kind of makes a little bit of sense.
And I don't think she ever saw the two as being mutually exclusive or in competition with each other. Like many do, obviously. But
she may have been more witchcraft than Wicca in that sense.
Yes, I think looking back in retrospect, it wasn't really Wicca. It was more, she was much more informed by the writings of Starhawk and stuff like that. So that was not I mean, what we now know is really more informed by fairy Wicca, or fairy witchcraft. But at the time, there was not really. I don't think people really distinguished them so much in the 80s and early 90s.
No, God, no, definitely not. I mean, I got into Wicca when I was 14, which was in 1992. So that 90s, that kind of like heyday of Llewellyn publishing, and everything like witchcraft and Wicca was basically two words that for the same thing, you know.
Right. You said Wicca if you want to sound more sophisticated.
What's that?
You want to use, you would say Wicca to sound more in the know, right?
I mean, back then, like I was a teenager. I'm in a, well, not a small town. I mean, it's population 100,000, but like it's isolated. I'm not near like Thunder Bay, the city that my hometown. It's not near any big center, so it's not like, you know, as a teenager, I had a lot of interactions with the wider occult community. So I was just taking what I was reading from books, and witchcraft and Wicca are the exact same thing. They're two different words for the same thing. So I consider myself Wiccan. And then when I was 18 or 19, I can't remember, I joined a Gardnerian coven. So that was, you know, genuine Wicca. But yeah, I don't think I saw any distinction like Wicca to sound more sophisticated or anything. I think I really saw it as being the exact same thing, really.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been, I mean, you know, I sometimes, like, it's such a different era, you know, 92. I mean, that was before the web. And, you know, finding information on this stuff was a lot harder. I don't know how that was for you. Kind of, you know, was it hard to find books on the subject, or did you, I mean,
no, I mean, we had Cole's bookstore. They're still around, but I mean, the big one now in Canada is Chapter. Well, I shouldn't call it Chapters. Indigo, and but back in the day, you know, Cole's bookstore, and they always had a really good selection of books on witchcraft and paganism and whatnot. They used to have huge sections of Dungeons and Dragons novels, but also all of the all the role-playing stuff too, like huge sections, all the books and reference books and you name it. That's weird. And even actually at Cole's, that's where I started making rolled beeswax candles, which is what I make now. Like that's the rolled beeswax candles are the bulk of my business, because they used to sell sheets of colored beeswax, and my friend Michelle and I started making our candles for our spells and whatnot. And plus we had the Black Unicorn, which was an occult shop as well. So we, you know, the books were there and they were easily accessible, and the library, my public library here had a really good selection of books as well. So, you know, the information was really easily accessible, actually. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a lot more, well, I mean, it's, you know, with online shopping today, technically it's even more accessible, but I mean, you know, I go into Kohl's nowadays, or even Chapters, and the sections aren't like what they used to be on paganism and magic and whatnot. And, you know, which, you know, from a business perspective, I get that, you know, with, you know, online shopping being so easy for them, or, you know what I mean? So like from a business perspective, I get it. But you know, I like going to bookstores. I like browsing and touching, and you know what I mean? So that's unfortunate, but what can you
Yeah,
do? Online is the way to go, really. So it is what it is.
that was one of the things that I missed most when COVID hit was, just going to a bookstore and just, or a library for that matter. But yeah, and
Yeah.
just leafing through. And now, things are opening up again, but a lot of the bookstores still require masks, which this is, I think, is probably a good thing. But it's like bookstores are already kind of stuffy, so when you're wearing a mask, it's not, it's less fun.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, I do. That is one of my favorite pastimes as well. I'm sure probably as with probably most of your listeners, I would
Yeah, I
imagine.
would think so. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, we have a used bookstore here that's really, really nice as well. I don't remember, as a teenager that we had a lot of used bookstores. Not that I remember. I would kind of think not because I don't really recall going in any,
Mm,
and I would have, you know.
mm.
Um, but there's one here called the Bookshelf that's really nice. It's big and
Awesome.
yeah.
If you're ever in Oakland, there's on I think it's Piedmont Avenue has like 5 used bookstores all within 5 blocks
Nice,
of each other.
nice,
It's
nice,
so great.
nice.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of British television,
Hmm.
and one show that's my favorite is Midsummer Murders,
Mm,
and it's really good, and it all takes place in, it centers around a detective, and it all takes place in like English in the countryside, in the small English villages, and I mean they're amazing. And
mhm.
every bookshop that's on that show, it's like heaven. And I
Yeah.
like I can smell it. I can smell it. I mean, they're stunning, and because
Yeah.
they're just jam packed, and narrow aisles, and it's just, oh, so amazing, so
Yeah.
amazing. I would be in heaven,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Oh God. Now that I'm thinking about that, I'm all like, I'm just gonna sit here and imagine myself in a overstuffed used bookstore.
English bookstore.
I mean,
Yeah.
that smell is just superb. I made a fragrance to smell
Mm,
like a bookstore with all the old books, and like the paper
nice.
and the leather and the wood, and it's
Mhm.
really nice. So yeah. Anyways, we got to stop talking about me. We're not everyone that's listening knows me. Okay, so 12-year-old Alessandro is now an initiated witch.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a fun moment when this was when I was still in Catholic school before I was initiated, but I had already started calling myself a witch. And uh, a, uh, a friend of mine outed me to one of the nuns.
Oh God.
And she cornered me in a hall and she's like, "So I hear you're a witch." I'm like, yeah. And so what does that mean? I'm like, I didn't even really know how to answer that question. So I was like, this is a 10-year-old boy you're talking about. And I'm like, I believe animals have souls. And she's like,
And she
well, if
punched you in
animals
the
have,
face.
well, she's like, well, if animals have souls, why don't they talk to us? I'm like, like, I don't even know how to answer that question. That's
That's weird.
Yeah, that was her logic. So anyway, that was my experience with Catholicism. So yeah, moving on through, by the time I graduated high school, I actually did not identify as a witch anymore. I was kind of getting more interested in Vedanta and what I was reading about with that kind of philosophy. I did join a coven briefly in college, as one does. um, and and then when I moved to New York after college, that was when I got introduced to Hermeticism and that whole thing. So joined a magical order there, um, and went through the grades with that. And that was really kind of, you know, where my kind of serious kind of training began.
Right, right, right. What magical, or I don't even know if I can ask you this. What magical order was that?
You can ask. It is essentially defunct now. It's called the Order of the Sevenfold Star. So if you go on the Wayback Machine, you can look at our website from the early 2000s. Yeah, it was just kind of a homegrown thing. But yeah, it did the job. So, but didn't have any lineage to speak of. It was, you know.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm trying to think. You talked about this with Frater V.T on.
Yeah, I probably did. Yeah.
Okay, because that just rang a bell, like that name. I'm like, why do I know that? If it's defunct, why would I know that it exists? So correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't it sort of like an amalgam of different ideas? Like, wasn't it like GD and Thelema all kind of like rolled into one?
Yeah, it was sort of like halfway between GD and AA, if you will. You know, we kind of used the GD rituals for the most part. Did make the adjustment to the god forms based on what was in the Book of the Law.
Right.
We were, you know, I mean, I don't identify as a Thelemite, but you know, I found that worked for me, and I kind of had an interesting experience with Set. And anyway, I already talked with him about that, so I won't rehash that here. But but yeah, it was basically, it was a little bit more more involved. Like, so some of the, so yeah, it was a little bit more involved than the normal traditional GD. Like being a Zealoter in the OSS was sort of like halfway between being a Zealoter in the Golden Dawn and being a Zealoter Adeptus Minor in the whatever it's called.
Okay.
Like it wasn't fully, like it was sort of, it was just, so you wouldn't, you know, you couldn't go through a grade more than one a year. You know, whereas I think like there are people who in the Golden Dawn would like zoom through all 4 grades in a matter of months. It was much more, the requirements to pass to the next grade were more intense than just the tests that were in the original Golden Dawn. I don't know how that compares to contemporary Golden Dawn orders.
It's quite a bit different. I mean, back in the day, you know, a lot of people, biographers about Crowley always seem to mention how he was just so brilliant and was able to zip through, you know, the outer order grades of the Golden Dawn in months. But the course requirements back then are, I don't want to say are nothing like they are now. It's just, there's just so much more grade material. And now I don't know about every single Golden Dawn order that's contemporary right now, but I think more often than not, you're gonna have a fuller course curriculum now. Now I know there's some Golden Dawn orders out there that are very traditional. I don't know what traditional means to them. It's like, are they so traditional that they're trying to go back to just the material that's pre-schism? I don't know. But you know, the course material is quite different. There's a lot of stuff now that in the outer order grade course material that was, you know, back in the day was in like the Adeptus Minor coursework and whatnot. So yeah.
Like, I mean, you weren't, you know, I think like you wouldn't normally learn the middle pillar originally, like you wouldn't learn the middle pillar until you're already an adept, and of course, and we were teaching middle pillar to neophytes.
Right. Which is I mean, in my opinion, it's a smart thing to do. Like there was a lot of stuff in that was, you know, not available to, you know, the outer order grades that I think absolutely should be a part of the outer order grades and taken out of Adeptus Minor. Everyone's going to have their own opinion, and of course every order is going to do things their own way, you know, the way they see fit. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine not giving the middle pillar, even like the basic middle pillar without the circulation of light,
Right.
to, you know, yeah, even a neophyte. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was probably the bulk of my magical training.
How long was it around for?
Let's see. I'm trying to remember. So we formed it in 2002. I'm trying to think. So when let's see. So I basically averaged 1 grade per year, and I think it was probably around. I'm trying to think of, like, it's probably around Practicus, give or take. That was around the time when it kind of started to fall apart. So that'd have been what, 2002, 2003, 4, 5. It's around 2005, I guess.
Okay.
Would be when we actually grew. So the founder of the order moved to Boston and started a second temple there, and through Kismet, I guess, just managed to was found by a bunch of people who were leaving the Hermetic Order of the Morning Star International, OMSI, because of something that was happening there, which Frater RC knows a lot more about than I do.
Yeah.
But you probably know about it as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who were in the Boston area kind of came to us to kind of, you know, continue their work, which at first was like, oh, cool, we can actually like have like a full temple, and like, you know, having like even the role of the, you know, sentinel outside. Like I remember for one neophyte initiation, I was like, that was my role, and it was cool because I'd already done I'd already been an officer for neophyte so many times. I was like happy to just sort of sit outside and, and listen and hold the sword, and, you know. So that was pretty exciting. But it was one of those things where we kind of grew too fast and wasn't able to manage it effectively, and kind of it all probably exploded probably in about the space of a year. I'm kind of, you know, I don't remember exactly. So after that,
was there, well, okay, I have 2 questions for you before you move on from that. One, did you have like a dedicated temple space?
No, it was the, you know, the dining hall or the dining room, not dining hall, the dining room in the house that was rented by the Hierophant.
And my other question was, okay, so when some of these members from Homsey came to you guys, did it become problematic? Like, you know, we're GD, we need to do GD, we need to, you know, excise any Thelema out of what you guys are doing.
There was only one person who had an issue with the Thelemic aspect of what we were doing.
Okay.
So I think he came around for a little bit, but then he was like, no way, no how are we invoking Set? That's not okay. And so he, you know, so yeah, I don't think we actually, which was, you know, we were kind of like, okay.
Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you know, if you don't agree with what's going on in a particular group, then you don't join. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not a big
better to be your integrity, and exactly. So yeah, there was no, it was just, you know, we just sort of, you know, went our separate ways, and that was fine. But aside from that one case, there wasn't any issue with that. I think it was the bigger issue was just growing too big too fast, and our Hierophant not really having any idea at the time. You know, I mean, we were all young, right? I mean, and not knowing how to grow manage an organization that was growing, you know, so fast. It wasn't even that big, but it was, you know, big enough that it was just like, overwhelming.
You don't need a big group to have, problems with group management. I mean, any number higher than one, and
Yeah.
like, let's be honest. I mean, I run a group here that had a couple problematic people, and it's really disruptive, and one group I shut down, and just because of it, and then reformed another group with like a select membership from the old group. And I mean, we got big, and there was personalities, and I mean, it's human nature. It's human nature.
I think it's sort of one of those lessons that every group needs to learn. At some point, like, there's that enthusiasm of like, oh, we're growing and this is so exciting, and then it's like, oh, maybe we should have guarded that west gate a little bit better.
Yeah, one big takeaway that I learned with the group dynamics and whatnot is democracy doesn't work. Hierarchy does. And it's rituals this day at this time, show up, don't show up, it's your choice. Do
everything by committee is just death by committee, as they say.
Death by committee, absolutely. But of course, what doesn't come with all of our great magical skills, and I don't care how many initiation rituals you have committed to memory, how many roles in initiation rituals you have committed to memory. That's all great, but being able to deal with personalities and having the tools and the processes to deal with interpersonal conflict and group dynamics is something that these groups just don't possess, and those skills don't come naturally with your adepthood or all of your fancy titles. So
it's one of those things where I mean, I'm really glad that I went to seminary for a few years, because I got a chance to like learn a lot of those skills. I remember there was a fellow in my class who he was actually a Zen monk, and had still has, I'm sure, what do you call it? I say monastery, but there's a different word for it. But anyway, you get the idea. I think in the Midwest, something like that. And he was trained. He went to Korea. He got trained there, and ordained there, and tried to bring that back to the States and do things the way that they did, in Korea. But the problem is that in the U.S., the expectations of a spiritual leader are different, right? So people were coming to him as if he was, a minister, and he had like no idea how to deal with that, and he had no idea how to deal with the kinds of stuff that comes up with a spiritual organization. So even though he was already ordained and already had something, he went, took a sabbatical so he could go to seminary, so he could, a Western seminary, so he could learn how to do this stuff. And I think in Masonry, likewise, there's some good educational programs that are available for like how to run a lodge, and how to just logistical stuff, not the fun, sexy, spiritual, but just like, but if you're just, starting an order out of, a couple books written by, the Ciceros or, whatever, you're not going to learn how to, you're just going to have to fail, learn by trial and error.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Frater V.T and I have talked a lot about, since you bring up the Ciceros, talked a lot about Cicero's book, Self-Initiation into the Golden Dawn. And I'm not going to get
our textbook.
What's that?
That was our textbook, pretty much.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not going to get into the pros and cons of the book, but one thing he did say, he said, you know, this is an excellent book for a hierophant to sort of here's how you run a temple. You know, and you know, like the mechanics of the temple, quote unquote, as opposed to the personalities, because of course that book doesn't get into that, as opposed to like an actual self-initiation into the Golden Dawn book, which you just can't do.
No,
like I said, like I don't, you
the
know,
title is misleading. It really is a manual for a lodge or a temple.
Yeah.
Which is how we used it.
Yeah, it's that book would be just change the title to Hierophant training manual or something like that, and great, you know, go. But
start your own GD temple in 12 easy steps.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I you know, to be like, you know, that's kind of a joke, and you know, in 12 easy steps, but I mean, that would be a more valid title than Golden Dawn, you know. So, you know, it is what it is. That book certainly has value, but value in a different context than what the title suggests.
I remember when it was recommended to me, I was really confused. I was like, I thought the whole point was that I'm not getting self-initiated. That I'm going to a temple, that I'm learning, you know, that I'm being initiated by a group, and you know, but that was just the use, you know. But I mean, it's a great resource. But yeah,
oh,
it's
absolutely.
Not really for self-initiation.
No. No, I mean, you can learn, you know, some magical, you know, techniques and whatnot, and that's great, you know, for, you know, if you're beginner just starting out. But yeah, it's anyway, I don't want to talk about the book. I mean, I talk about that book so much with its pros and cons and whatnot, and I don't want to discourage people from getting it, because I'm not talking it down. It's just, you're not going to self-initiate into the Golden Dawn regardless of the book, you know.
I think Don Michael Craig's book is much better if you're just a solitary practitioner and you just want to like learn the Golden Dawn material on your own. That to me is modern magic.
Yeah, well, yeah, just because I mean, it's like, you know, if you took the self-initiation book and you pared it down to, you know, the basics, and you took all of the GD temple stuff out, sure. So the question would be like, okay, then would you recommend one over the other? And that's a tough.
I think if you're on your own, if you're not doing temple work, I would recommend modern magic, because I don't think it's really feasible to. I don't think you can get the most out of. Although it's been years since I've looked at either, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I tried working through self-initiation, and it was funny because they recommended that for the officers, you make the wands, and they would represent the officers. And they're like, oh, and you could learn how to make the wands in our book, Secrets of a Golden Dawn Temple. So I'm like, okay.
Out of print, I'm pretty sure.
What's that?
Which is out of print, I believe.
I think so, yeah. So I'm looking at the Secrets of the Golden Dawn Temple. I'm expecting that they're like, okay, get poster board, and for this, it's going to be this shape, and use these colors, and glue it on a dowel. Oh no. They're like, okay, you need this type of saw, this type of saw, metal cutters, and like they're teaching you step by step, which is great, but they're teaching you step by step how to make genuine Golden Dawn wands. And I'm like who, what
Who's got time for this?
Yeah. I'm a makeup artist.
Yeah.
In an apartment in Texas, and I fly to a different city for work every single day. Guess who doesn't have tools?
Yeah.
Guess who's not getting tools?
Yeah.
Guess who doesn't have the time to make full, genuine wands? So
Yeah.
I basically am like, okay, well, I'm getting dowels and I'm getting like poster board and doing what I thought they would suggest.
Sure.
And so creating a temple in your house in that way certainly had value.
Sure.
But did I self-initiate into the Golden Dawn? No. No, you can't. You can't. Um, you can't. Yeah, you can't.
And I was really like impressed by how much Dave, the person who started this order, um, you know, he would do that kind of stuff. And, you know, I mean, which was a real, you know, testament to his dedication and his commitment to it. And that, you know, he like, and, but, you know, at the same time, like, he's not trained, you know, he's not a carpenter or anything. So,
Yeah.
like, you know, the lotus wand would keep breaking. You know, it'd be like, and the like the caduceus would have like the you'd see like there's be a part of the snake that had been like glued back on 3 times.
Yeah.
Because it's clay and clay is fragile, and you know,
Yeah.
um,
I thought of doing clay and I'm like, no, like when I made my lotus wand, you know, and I was sitting here, I'm like, how am I going to make the lotus? Because it's metal and, you know, I first working, and I will go to my grave. I will go to my grave believing this. Our first working, I was going to ask for a little boost in my business. And then I'm like, oh, no, I'm fine. Like, I don't know. I just want to, focus on, the main intent of why we were doing the working. So yeah, I'm not going to ask, but it was in my head. And while we were invoking Haganel, I get an email from a distributor. I now have a distributor for Asia.
Nice.
So my little, just a little boost in my business, and that was with working with no tools except a sigil on a piece of paper, not even colored. And, so it works until it doesn't. One thing I'm beginning to learn is that some of these tools and some of these processes are actually really important. But what I'm learning is the angels are kind of like adults humoring children a bit. And they're like, okay, this is fine. Okay, but now it's time to, and I can see the direction it's going, where I'm going to need, the table of practice, and it's just that I can see it heading that way, especially with what we did this past Sunday night, which was I can't even begin. Oh God, I can't even begin to describe that. That was something else. But yeah, the indications are there that they'll let you get away with what you can manage. Because they know, like they know when you're just, well, this is just easy and quick, I can just do this. When they know you're capable and able to step it up, and they're like, okay, upgrade, so yeah, are tools necessary? Not 100%. It's not a hard no or a hard yes, but there's value in them. And I mean, start with nothing, and add as you can. And
I'm always curious to learn about how the actual directed, like what's actually going on, because when people write about magic or their experience with magic, it's usually a little bit removed. Like you're not, like I'm always curious, like what's it like in the room, and so I'm wondering, like with what you're doing with the Enochian stuff. Now you said you're doing this with Frater V.T's
Hermetic Mystery School.
Now that's not local, right? Like he's not local to you. Are you doing?
No. Oh yeah, no. So and here's the other element is he's in BC. I'm in Ontario. We have a couple of people in the States, and a couple of people in other parts of Canada and whatnot. So this is all online, and so we're doing this all online. And what's interesting is when we're doing the actual invocations, it's not like we're like, okay, well, we all have to do the invocations, speak the invocations at the same time, and the prayers, because we're all separated. We have, the one operator, and the results are, it's making me rethink a lot of my opinions and beliefs in magic, how it works, and how the internet works with magic, and it's it's really making me reevaluate a lot of my deeply held opinions and whatnot. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting adventure.
You mind if I'd love to dig even further, if you don't mind. Like, are you like, do you, so you're on, is it like a Zoom call with a few other people? And it's more than just you and Frater V.T, like it's a group of people.
It's a
right?
group.
Like,
Yeah. It's a
and
group.
do you have it like, so do you all just like have your, laptop in, is it like in gallery view in your temple?
Yeah.
Is it like, is your camera like facing you or facing the table? Or I mean, I want to visualize this. I want to see what it's,
Okay, so what I chose, like there's some people in the group that are like beginner, so they don't have, well, I shouldn't say that. So I'm not going to speak about the others because I can't, I'm not, I can't speak 100% on their setups and their skill.
Yeah, for you, like what,
So for me, what I chose to do, because I'm not the operator and I like experimenting with magic, initially what I thought I was going to do is I was going to have, I'm in my ritual room, but that's the extent of my setup, being in my ritual room. And, the camera's on me. And for the first working, the only thing that I had was this one sigil that we all drew on paper. And
everybody drew the same sigil, just
yes. And like this past Sunday, for example, I brought out my Enochian tablets, but I'm still not at my altar. I'm not doing any, LB or PB or anything like that because no, which is really different for me because I'm so set on proper banishings before and after, like all the prep work and whatnot. Well, Dee never did any of that, and that's
gold, a whole bunch,
and not as opposed to Dee purist style.
Right.
So we're doing like the prayers, the invocations, and that's it. Well, I will say I will banish afterwards because I'm a big proponent on banishing, and this last working on Sunday really threw me, and I had to banish. I mean, I still didn't sleep that night anyways, but I fell asleep sometime after 4:30. I don't know when. But so, I will do my banishing afterwards. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to the LVX Files. I'm not just the host of this podcast, I'm also the owner of Lailokens Awen. I make beeswax and scented spell candles, loose stick and liquid incense, anointing oils, and bath salts. So once you're done listening to this episode, why don't you head on over to my website at www.lailokensawen.com and check out my products. For your convenience, the link to the website is also in the show notes. Because I just, but that's just so ingrained in my head as a process.
A good daily practice anyway.
Yeah. So that one sigil that was just drawn on a piece of paper, we did a working to find out what colors the sigil should be, and we all got the same colors and a couple of variations with the colors, and the sigils have gotten bigger and fancier, painted on wood and so it's a growing process, and it's been fascinating. It's been really, really fascinating because it's, I think, the way magic should be, where you just you don't have anything, you have a book, just start, and you'll be guided on what direction you need to go, what you need to do. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Like I can see the direction this is going to take, where we progress and we are going to be required to get a little bit more quote unquote proper form and whatnot, just based on some conversations that we've had with the angels. It's fascinating. It has been so fascinating for anyone that's listening. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more about what's going on, it's you can go to hermeticmysteryschool.com. Yeah, it's been something else. It's really been something else. And it's there's been a big shift just these past couple of weeks in me, which I wasn't really expecting, like so dramatic. So yeah.
And I'm wondering with you, so you said that about kind of like you start and then you kind of let the magic kind of guide you, let the angels guide you. Do you find that different at all, or is it the same when working with a group versus working individually?
I find individually, I tend to have more casual conversations with the spirits that I invoke. There tends to be a bit of an informality to that interaction. Like I did a working with Badir, the king of the fairies, and we literally sat in chairs just chit-chatting. And yeah, it was so bizarre just for how normal the experience was, because it was just like you and I are just sitting here chit-chatting. That's what I was doing with Madir, King of the Fairies. Just chatting. I mean, the only real amazing thing is that he made my seat out of a tree stump while I stood there and watched, you know. So, I mean, you know, and of course it was smaller than his. Well, it would be, because I mean he's a king, so of course it's going to be bigger, but you know, whatever. So yeah, no, not dramatically different, but there's some nuances that to the interaction, to the relationship, that's a bit different. Yeah, but not so different that it's that I find like a positive or negative of doing, you know, doing this sort of stuff in a group versus individually. So yeah.
The vast majority of my work has been individual, even when, you know, we did do, obviously with the order back in the early aughts, we did a fair amount of group work, but I think even then, like the heavy, a lot of, well, I don't know, it's both. But magic, now these days,
yeah. But I mean, magic is person. I mean, no matter how into like larger group work you are, I mean, magic, the bulk of your magic is on your own.
Yeah.
You know,
one of the things I found really interesting, I was reading an account of I forget what book it was in, but it was about it had some, you know, records of magical workings in a lodge, and they would do path workings as a group, and it was hard for me to totally figure it out, but what it looked like was happening was people in the group would share what they were seeing. And that would kind of shape the group experience.
Yes.
Which I'd never done before, but I thought that was a really neat thing. And it kind of made me curious to try something like that. Because for me, pathworking is, even when I've done pathworking with other people, we all just go into ourselves and don't really share until maybe afterwards.
Yeah, I don't know if that sort of technique originates with the Golden Dawn. I can't answer that. But so, you know, when you do that sort of group path working, you have the operator, and then that's kind of like guiding the path working. And so you're all, you know, you're guided to be seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if I'm one of the people that are traveling in the spirit vision, and I, you know, oh, I'm seeing blah 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 blah. Okay, now for, you know, the operator will direct the rest of the group to to see that as well. And so the group is shaping the vision for the entire group, as opposed to, you know, the operator just kind of like guiding you through, and you're seeing what you're seeing, the next person seeing what they're seeing. And you know, it's when you're doing a path working where you're just kind of you're being led to wherever you're supposed to go, and then you just do your own thing, that's not really a group path working. It's interesting in a group afterwards to find commonalities, but that's not really a group path working. A group path working is, you know, where you're all, you know, led to the same place, and then you're all shaping each other's visions by relating what you're seeing, so you have that group experience of the same experience. You know, one isn't better than the other. I'm not suggesting that. It's just they're both they're both different. Yeah,
I think they have different pros and cons. Like, you know, I think that one of the things that I heard a similar story of not really path working, but just going to an inner grove or sacred grove, and that basically people would kind of do it together in the circle and say what they see, and so everybody else would kind of see it too, and so it created this sort of shared inner experience. And I did that with a reclaiming group that I'm involved with in California last year, when we were going to go to the Mendocino Woodlands, but because of COVID, we couldn't. So I guided them into kind of a similar kind of space that we could kind of have a shared experience like that, which I think was a nice way to kind of be able to bring people together in the inner planes, which is very different, which is, you know, it's related, but it's different from, I'm going to go have a conversation with Nadir or somebody like that, and hear what he needs to tell me as a, you know, for my personal growth and development, which is kind of a different thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So not like, you know, not like we got off on a tangent, because I just let the conversations go where they go. I mean, you know, we're informal here. But so did you join the Masons before Druidry?
Yes, before Druidry. After I joined the Order of Sevenfold Star. So in 2005, I had a lot of changes. One of them was going to grad school. One was my first attempt at seminary, and one was joining the Masons. And my intention with that was really, I had very low expectations. I was like, you know, I figured that it was kind of this semi-defunct old man's club that was, you know, but I knew that that was the source of the Golden Dawn. It was the source of all this stuff, right? Everything that is in the Western mystery tradition today, basically, you know, is tied in one way or another to Freemasonry. So I was like, well, let's go to the root. Let's see what that's about, and what better way to do it than actually join. So I put the word out on LiveJournal, if you remember LiveJournal. You know, because I remember at first I went to look, you know, to see what lodge to join, and I went to the, you know, this is in New York City. There's like 72 lodges in New York City. I think the number actually was 72, which I thought was kind of nice. It's obviously different now, but when I counted that one time. Yeah, so I was like, well, which one do I choose? The one with the coolest name? Well, okay, so that's All Seeing Eye Lodge. I was like, maybe I should join All Seeing Eye Lodge. It's a pretty cool name. But you know, the name might, you know, who knows why it's named the way it is, and if that hasn't. So I put the word out saying, hey, I'm interested in kind of the more metaphysical, mystical sides of Masonry. You know, what lodge should I join? And someone got back to me, and it was put me in contact with Mariner's Lodge, one of the oldest lodges in New York, started in 1825, and it had been semi-taken over by a coven, by all the male members of a coven in New York. So
Interesting.
about half of the members at the time that I joined were also members of this coven. The nice thing about that was they all gave a damn about the ritual. So they took it very seriously. And the musician was something else. He was able to, he played the organ, and he also played a drum, like a hand drum. And he would alternate between them, which sounds really discordant. But it created this really interesting kind of combination of feelings of like, part of it being this very kind of primal, almost primitivistic, like, initiation going, that like a men's initiation going to the dawn of time kind of thing. And then part of it was also this sort of kind of Victorian kind of, high, and it's kind of bringing the two together, which in a lot of ways is sort of what Masonry is, right? It's sort of this modern, now, like Victorian kind of take on these sort of, this sort of mystery tradition. And it blew my mind. It was, I mean, a lot of it was like, oh, I've seen this before, because I was already, had gone through some of the Golden Dawn style grades. Yeah, I was very active in that when I was in New York, and I really got a lot out of it. And then moved to California and have, when I moved out to California, I did join the Scottish Rite out here, but never was into it the way that I was when I was in New York.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess for someone that's magically inclined, if that's your first experience with Masonry is having, a lodge like that, I could see how another lodge would just pale in comparison. As great as lodge can be in its own way, I can see how it could pale in comparison. I need to pause for one moment.
Sure.
And we're back. So far your story's interesting. I mean, you go from witchcraft to like a GD Thelema hybrid to Masonry, and then to Druidry.
Yeah, and so Druidry, yeah.
You joined the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, which is the Druid order that I belong to as well. How did that come about?
So, let's see. I advanced to Portal just before I left New York in 2010. So there was a big gap thing when I was in Practicus when I got to, Philosophus when I got to Portal. And then a much bigger gap between that and Adept, but I'll get to that. So I advanced to Portal and then moved to California. Around the same time as that, I also got Jung's The Red Book.
Okay.
So that was when that came out. And really was fascinated by his active imagination working that led to The Red Book. And started to, and in that he meets his daemon, Philemon, and, which is arguably his holy guardian angel. And so I kind of took that working to be equivalent to what I understood as the Abramelin operation, or knowledge and conversation. And I just couldn't do the Abramelin operation. But I could do an active imagination working. So that's what I did. And over the course of about a month, and it worked, at least as far as I was concerned, it worked. And I shared what I did with the Hierophant in my order, and he agreed that it was counted as KNC. So he did. So actually, as a result of that, he initiated me into Adept with one other person. Okay. I don't want to go into detail about what that working was, but it led me towards the end of it. It led me on this path of like reconnecting with the kind of Arthurian current, if you will.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Which was something, you know, like all young boys, I was into, you know, watching movies like Sword in the Stone and Excalibur and all that stuff as a kid. So, so I started reading a lot about the Arthurian mythos and kind of getting into that. And then it kind of languished for a bit. And then I picked up a book in Half Price Books in Berkeley, you know, while I was in seminary, and it was called Grail Alchemy by, I'm blanking on her name right now, but you might have heard of that one. And that kind of felt like, oh, this is neat. This is sort of like, you know, seems like kind of what I'm looking for. It's sort of a synthesis of the Arthurian stuff with kind of a little bit of a Golden Dawn type stuff thing. And I looked into Mara Freeman. That's the author. You know, her background, and so she has this order, but she's a member of OBOD. And then I started looking around even more, and it's like everyone seems like that was like the one thing that like everyone's in OBOD.
Right.
If you start one of these other orders, or you know, you start with OBOD. So I'm like, so kind of the same kind of thinking, where it's like why I went to Masonry is like, okay, let's go to OBOD, because that seems to be kind of the root of all these sort of druidic and Arthurian and all this stuff. It all kinds of, you know, it kind of centers out of that. So that was what led me to OBOD. And so I joined that a few years ago, and yeah, and just started the Druid grade about a few months ago.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. I joined OBOD in 2006. So it was quite a while ago. I had, when I was living in Toronto, I had met a woman who was in the Fellowship of Isis, and that's how we met. And I don't know how the conversation got to Druidry and to OBOD. Probably, I probably brought it up as, you know, I was interested in, like Druidry and, you know, mentioning OBOD or whatnot. And it turned out she was a member of OBOD and was a member of a grove. And so I remember the first time I went with her to a grove ceremony at Mount Forest outside of Guelph, which, you know, like where I was living in Toronto was like an hour and a half drive away. And we stayed the weekend at these people's place out in the country, and so amazing. Their land was just perfect. It was built for druids or witches, Wiccan, whatever.
Yeah.
Such a magical place. And yeah, so every 6 weeks, you know, Sabbath, 6 weeks or so, we'd be up there at Mount Forest on this beautiful property, and that's where I had my initiation and some pretty incredible experiences out there. And that was like 2 years, because in 2008 I ended up moving to Texas. So or no, 3 years. I started rich with them in 2005, but I didn't join the order until 2006. That's something like that. It's been a while. It's been a while. So I had one hell of an experience in the Bardic grade, like an initiatory experience on my own that completely changed my entire life and my entire person. Like the pre-initiation Sean and the post-initiation Sean, like, we're just two completely different people. Completely different people. I don't think I would if I met that person, that pre-initiation Sean, I don't think we would get along. Yeah, I can see us not being the best of friends. Yeah, that was an interesting period of my life. I mean, there was other things going on. I had gone back to school. I was taking a natural health care practitioner certification course at the Transformational Arts College in Toronto. And I was just so fully immersed in this, magical, spiritual, holistic world of the Druidry and this training. And yeah, it just all came to a head in this one moment. And yeah, just something an experience I'm completely 100% thankful for, because I don't know, I just couldn't imagine if I stayed on the course that I was on with my life. Yeah, it wouldn't have been good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that. I mean,
Or it would have been good in a different way.
Yeah.
But not, yeah, no.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, in a lot of ways, I feel like my life, I mean, it's hard, it's hard to, I mean, but I feel like I had the similar kind of thing when I got initiated into the Order of the Sevenfold Star, or even before that, really. I mean, when I just met them and kind of learned what they were about and what magic was about. Whoa, because up until that point, like obviously I'd learned what magic was from understanding like Wicca and things like that. But to me, up until that point, magic was about like spellcraft. I didn't really care about spellcraft. Like I didn't, and so understanding kind of the approach of like, oh no, magic is about connecting with your will, and of course this is a very Thelemic approach, but that was sort of like, that's kind of in a lot of ways like that's when my life began.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, it was a very formative time. I was 22 years old. I just moved across the country, so there was a lot. I was definitely ripe for that kind of transformation. But yeah, it really was like a before, like what you're talking about, like a before and after, kind of like, this is not the same person.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's neat that you were able to experience that in a grove. Unfortunately, when I first signed up for OBOD, I just did it through the correspondence course, but I did, I went ahead and looked to see if there was a grove nearby, and there is a grove in San Francisco. So I went ahead and attended one of their public rituals, and it was weird. It was like there's, I mean, every grove is supposed to have at least 2 druids. As far as I could tell, there was only 1 druid there.
Well, yeah. So a grove requires 2 druid grade OBOD druids. Otherwise, it's known as a C group.
Right.
Now, if there was only 1 druid there, like, was there only 1 druid there that day?
No, I think that maybe they were either grandfathered in, or maybe they had something like that. Because what it was there was one guy who was clearly running the show, and he's a psychologist, and most of the people there were his clients.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's like, what's going on here?
Like, when you say most of the people that were there, like, because you said it's a public ritual, so was there like I don't mean full grove, like there's a specific number for a full grove, but what were there OBOD druids there plus the public, which
no, well, I mean, I didn't interrogate each person. I know that at least, so one person I talked to who was kind of new to the group, and so we kind of connected on that we were both nobody knew us. He had just started the OBOD course, so I think it was sort of, I think that the idea was, I think everybody there, well, I don't know, but the impression that I got was that at least most of the people there were at least either enrolled or were maybe considering enrolling but hadn't quite yet. But it wasn't, it wasn't like, because I know that there are a lot of groups that are like, yeah, some of us are in OBOD, some, like for instance, the East Bay Druids, some of them are OBOD, some of them are ADF, some of them are, other things. And they kind of just have this sort of pan druid thing, and they're not a growth, like they yeah. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, that just made me, I never thought about this before. Like, if you have a genuine grove, meaning at least 2 druid grade members and one left. So now you're down to one druid grade. Do you lose your grove status? I don't
I
know.
don't think so.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, we talk about OBOD, short for the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. We talk about OBOD as a druid order and an organization, and it has the largest druid membership in the world. But it's not. It's not like a unify. We're not talking about like the cohesion of like a church.
Right.
So I can't imagine.
Yeah, you're not going to have a charter
head
revoked like
office,
you would. Yeah.
quote unquote, keeping track and being like, oh, you're one of your two druids moved away, so we're demoting your grove down to a secret. Like I mean,
I don't see that happening.
yeah, I really don't.
Maybe it should, but no.
Well, I mean,
quality control. It's
like if you're going to differentiate, if you're going to have like a technical differentiation between a seed group and a grove, it would make sense to have a little bit more, not oversight, but because if like, I mean, people are using your brand name, so to speak, like, oh, my OBOD grove, blah 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 blah, when it's not a grove. Like, maybe you should keep more of an eye on especially since like through Touchstone and whatnot, you have groves and seed groups advertising to new members and stuff like that. So not advertising like, oh, our grove is located here, contact us if you're interested in attending ritual. Not advertising.
I know what you mean. Well, I guess your listeners meant that though.
yeah, that was more. Yeah, I meant that was more for listeners. So yeah, I mean, there's certainly value to having OBOD the way it is, but there's certainly value to having a little bit of,
this conversation reminds me of something that I've been kind of thinking about. I've heard it said that the whole structure of initiatory orders is basically that it's just falling apart. And I was like reading an article in the Scottish Rite Journal about how, like, back in the day you'd have a incoming class of 70 new members, and how like now it's like you're lucky if you have 7. People in it. I was thinking about how the conceit of a mystery school is a little bit disrupted by the fact that there aren't any secrets anymore, right? There's no secret knowledge. There's no one in any order can presume to know something that you don't have access to.
Yeah.
But that was that was the whole conceit. Like, that was why people would, why a lot of people would join the Masons, why people would join the Golden Dawn, would join Scientology. It was this idea that you're going to get access to secret knowledge. And I mean, in my point of view, the point is not the secret knowledge. The point is being able to do these very powerful rituals with other people who know how to do them.
Yeah.
But I'm curious what you think. Like, do you have any opinions about like the future of initiatory orders as a concept?
Yeah. So I don't. Initiatory orders are not going away. There's always going to be, initiatory orders. People like to talk about initiatory orders as kind of like a dying breed, but there are more initiatory magical orders now right now, today, than there ever were.
Mm.
The thing is that we put so much value on online presence. Your value as a magician and a teacher is based on your follower count, not your actual knowledge. Your value is based on how visible you are online, and that's not the case. Like, some of the most, I don't want to say important people, the most knowledgeable, the best teachers, these are the people that aren't on TikTok and, doing hot takes on Twitter. They're very private, and they're very quiet, and you see flame wars and arguments on social media, which okay, can I remind you that you're arguing with a total stranger that you've never met and will never meet, so what's the point?
Right.
But with that aside, for like, if you were busy doing the work, you wouldn't have time to be all over Twitter and Instagram and Facebook shitting on people.
Right.
You know?
That's a good point. And I think, it reminds me of something that I was hearing, somebody was talking about on the Conspirituality podcast about, gurus, and how, when you hear about a guru, more often than not, it's a scandal, right? And so it could lead you to think that everyone who's in that tradition is just a psychopath. But the fact is that the true, the people who are truly wise you haven't heard of them, because they're just keeping to themselves in an apartment, and they have maybe a handful of students, and that's all you need. And and I met one of those people over in just above Lake Merritt, and he's he's got a little website, but if you didn't know, you'd never find it. Like, it's something you'd have to, it's totally word of mouth that anyone even knows that he exists. And he has zero interest in promoting himself. I think the only reason why he has a website at all is that some student was like, I want to make you a website, and he said okay. It's just, and all it has is when he has his classes, and he just, it's all word of mouth. And he's somebody who I think is truly, I mean, as far as I could, after I've only met him a few times, but he seems to me like the real deal. And he'll never be written up in any, you'll never see him on Twitter.
And I mean, publish your books, but do stuff like that. But yeah, they're not all over social media trying to get likes or followers, or trying to direct people, here's my website, click join, pay your dues, blah 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 blah. So there's lots going on in the world of magical lodges and initiatory traditions. I find that the people that talk down initiatory traditions the most, or the ones that like to have a conversation that initiatory traditions are dying out, one, almost to a T, none of those people have ever been a part of an initiatory tradition, so you're talking down about something that you have no experience in. And number two, don't want to be dedicated to having to do, here's your coursework. If you want to get from A to B, this is how you do it, through this coursework. And that they don't want to do the hard work, and which is fine. It's this path isn't made for everybody. So if you're not cut out to to that level of dedication to a tradition, then don't join. Like whether it's a Golden Dawn lodge or a Gardening Coven, if it's not your thing, don't join. Like you don't have to, but you know, don't bash it just because it's not for you. Number one. Number two, you don't know what you're bashing because you weren't in that tradition. So what is there to bash? You know,
I hope you're right, because that's you know, when I hear stuff about how like,
oh, I know I'm right,
you know,
because we've had initiatory traditions for, geez, humans have been around for 1.4 million years, or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, initiatory traditions are never gonna go away. And the loosest tradition organization, in the loosest possible terms, is still an initiatory tradition. Like, I mean, you know, it just, no, I mean, they've been around for all of, you know, human civilization. They're not going anywhere. They're not. No, they're not going anywhere. They're, because it's not a fad. It's not a trend. And like I said, there's more now than there were in what everyone likes to call the golden age, you know, back late 1800s, early 1900s. How was that the golden age? I mean, the Golden Dawn only had like 100 members, you know. Now there's thousands of Golden Dawn members across different orders, you know. Yeah, no, I mean, no, yeah, it's just, I think it's just, that's conversations people like to have or suggest that, you know, initiatory traditions are on the decline, just to make them feel better.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one of the things that you said about the effort put in, and I think one of the biggest mistakes that Masonry made was in the 70s and 80s, when they saw that they were just hemorrhaging members. None of the boomers wanted to join, right? They didn't want to have anything to do with what their fathers did, and so they didn't want to join. And there's this idea that, oh, people don't want to join because they're too busy, so we should make it easier. And so they trivialized Masonry. You know, you'd have these day classes where you get all 3 degrees in a single day and all this nonsense. And you know, what I found was the exact opposite was true. When I was with Mariners, and we started gradually upping the ante of like what it takes, and we started putting forth requirements. They weren't BS requirements. They were actually, like, they were very functional. Like, one of them was, if you were, it was an entered apprentice or a fellow craft, but like you had to, you know, we would have a table lodge every meeting, which is, you know, a festive board, like with dinner, everything. If you were you know, an apprentice, your job was in the kitchen. Like, that was what you were, you know,
Right.
that was where you're supposed to be. And we were a little bit worried when we were like, okay, are we going to do this? Are we really going to like ask these men to just like, you just tell them like you need to work in the kitchen? But there was no resistance. They were happy to do it, because it meant that they were part of something. And then, you know, and it detrivialized it. It meant, you know, and of course we had other requirements. I mean, that was actually probably the last one that we implemented. We also had, you know, we added like, you had to produce a work of architecture, which was usually a paper. You know, have you know, there's a longer period of time between degrees and various other things that we kind of, you know, in order to make it a richer experience. But you know, to really So you wouldn't just go be passed through. Like there's a memorization requirement. We took that very seriously. No, some lodges don't. They're like, okay, if you can remember three words, it's good enough, and we'll pass you on to the next grade.
Yeah.
But those are the lodges that people they're just a revolving door. Like nobody sticks around. So we found that not only are people willing to put in more, they want to. Like it's actually people are looking for something meaningful to commit to.
Yeah,
because we do live in this very disposable world.
Yeah, I'm not a title collector. I mean, there's plenty of people, we all know this, there's plenty of people in the occult community that's just looking for titles. I'm not saying titles aren't of any value. I think you should love the title that you've attained, whether it's Zealoter, Bard, Adeptus Minor, Druid, whatever. Celebrate it, see the accomplishment. But because I'm not like a title collector or a title chaser or whatever, I'd rather have more work than less in between grades, because you want to give me more work, so you want to take more time out of your life and pass along more of your knowledge to me. Okay, I mean, it's your time, it's not my time. I mean, it's my time in the sense that I'm learning it, but that's why I'm there. So if it takes me longer because you're giving me more information, great. It's your time that you're not wasting, but it's dedicating to it, not me. So bring it on. I mean, if I'm joining an order and I'm paying monthly dues, I want to get my money's worth. I don't understand wanting to join an order, pay your monthly dues, and just kind of be shuffled through grades, and like you're literally paying whatever money a month for what? You didn't learn anything. I don't get it. And none of these titles, like, you go into any store, restaurant, I don't care who you speak to, and you're like, I'm an Adeptus Minor. Crickets.
Well, the funny thing
no one on this, very little people on this planet know what that means. So why are you paying for this title that you didn't achieve? No, give me the work. Give me the work. Because it doesn't benefit me,
It's an interesting thing with the Scottish Rite, because in the US you can get from the 3rd to the 32nd degree in a weekend. Like, that's easy. Not so in Latin America. You need to earn each degree,
right?
And to be a 32nd degree Mason in Latin America is like a major lifetime achievement,
right?
And so one of the things that you learn is, if you're a 32nd degree Mason in the US and you go to Latin America, don't tell people you're a 32nd degree Mason, because they will very quickly figure out that they'll think you're a fraud,
right?
Because because they know what that means down there, and it doesn't mean the same thing. So just say you're a Mason, that's fine, but don't because it does mean something down there to be a 32nd. Or to be a 16th degree Mason means something. That doesn't mean anything here.
Right.
I should probably get going pretty soon. I have my call in a few minutes, but
yeah.
I mean, we don't have to. It's not a couple more minutes, but I figure we should just
wrap up a bit. So you have like a project that you're working on. So we should talk a little bit about that.
So so when I was on Frater RC's podcast, Magic Without Fears. That was pretty early on in this project. I think I was still in the process of gathering information from prospective students about what it was that I was going to teach. One of the things that happened that was kind of funny was I put out this email to like everyone who I had ever had any contact with in any way, even remotely relating to this. And so I got a few dozen people, giving me information about what they're interested in, and then I kind of followed with those people to see, what level of commitment would you be willing to make, and what would you be willing to sign up for. And the first 4 people who responded to that were you couldn't pick a more diverse group of 4 people from my life. You had one who was a colleague of mine from graduate school studying neuroscience, one who was a Mason in New York, one who was a colleague of mine in the tech industry here in San Francisco, and one who was a witch. And I'm like, I don't know how to talk to these 4 people because they are so different, and I don't even know how to how to level set. So that led me to doing a kind of a canned pre-recorded course, which I released on Udemy. It's called Unlocking the Unconscious Through Symbol and Ritual. It is about magic, but it does not mention the word magic. I decided to leave that out for the beginning, although at the very end, I give some references and resources where you can kind of dig into that. Now I've got a new project, which kind of came across my desk in kind of an interesting way. Somebody was doing a call for DVDs for incarcerated pagans. And I thought, oh, that could be fun. Do record some videos for that. So I've been recording some videos. I did, got one, like an hour-long thing that I've put together. That's kind of it's all very introductory. An introduction to what is the Golden Dawn and why you should care. A 45-minute kind of lecture on and demonstration of the LBRP and like how to do it. And what's going on with that, and then like a 10-minute kind of explanation of just like
that
what is
is
magic.
Noble work, my friend. I have to say that is noble work.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to release that once I get it done and ready for the prisoners. To also release that and maybe as a fundraiser for the Pagan Prison Resource Center.
Okay.
Because they need all the help they can get.
Yeah.
So that might be forthcoming. So that's what I got going on.
Excellent. So that course that you did, like, that's still available?
Oh yeah. If you look for Unlocking the Unconscious or Unlocking the Unconscious Through Symbol and Ritual on Udemy, that's where it is now. It's my first course. It's so be gentle. But if you want, I don't know, I could give like a discount code if that'd be helpful for listeners if they want to sign up or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put in the show notes or something.
Yeah, because I'll put the link to get to the course in the show notes. So yeah, if you want to provide me a discount code, that would be great as well. Are there any other links, social media, anything that like, hey, I'm here, you really should follow me?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Well, Instagram, yeah, okay, whatever. Deeper_wisdom for both of those, but Twitter is more active. I did get on TikTok, and that was fun. I started reading these atomic essays on TikTok, and only for about 3 weeks, but they're kind of fun. So that's Voluntas 2. I'll have to give you the link for that because there's no way anyone's going to remember how to spell that from my voice. And then my blog, which is www.deeperwisdom.org.
Excellent.
And that's not, haven't touched that in a while, but I hope to bring that up to date. Maybe by the time this goes out.
I think my blog now has been inactive for, I think, over a year. It was just getting too tough having to sit down and write. Like, I'm so busy with my business, even before, well, especially with COVID, like my business almost doubled, and my business like is here in my house, and couldn't hire anyone, so yeah, it's just so tough doing the blog, and now especially that I'm doing this podcast, and I have no time. So I think I think my blog's dead. I don't think it's coming back. I mean, never say never, but as of right now, I mean, I just no.
Another incarnation, some other form at some point. But,
I don't know. Maybe I'll, instead of word vomiting on blog, I'll just start word vomiting on on video and just posting it to you. I don't know. Yeah, no, it is what it is. I'm enjoying this podcast. I'm having fun with this, and I can't believe we've talked for almost 2 hours.
Yeah,
that was such an interesting conversation that just totally flew by. Yeah, I like talking to different people with different backgrounds, but to have someone with a lot of similarities, like with GD and with Druidry, OBOD specifically, because I mean, Druidry can. ADF Druidry is so much different than like OBOD Druidry.
Yep.
It's just nice to be able to have conversations. I like learning new things from people on this podcast with some of the guests, with things that I just don't know anything about. But when having those commonalities, it's a lot of fun to see those similarities and be able to talk about them. So yeah, this was a lot of fun. Of fun. I'm glad you agreed to come on the podcast.
Of course, my pleasure.
So just for the listeners, all of your links and everything that you just mentioned, I'm going to have them all in the show notes, so you don't have to like go back and hear it, pause it, write it down, or anything like that. So it's just, the links are going to be there for you to click on them. And yeah, I wanted to thank you again for being on the podcast, and I'll have to get you back on again, because I think we can talk quite a bit about quite a lot of stuff. And I'd like to get an update on these videos you're doing for the prisoners. So I'll definitely have to hit you up to come back on at a later time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Looking forward to giving you an update when I'm ready to.
Yeah, absolutely. So until then, everyone, thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Lux Files. You'll find all the guest links in the show notes, as well as the link www.lailokensAwen.com/links. That link will get you to my page of links, where you can then go to my Lailokens Awen website, the Lux Files page, and my Lailokens Awen YouTube channel that has all the Lux Files videos. It also has all my social media links there, so you can follow me and the Lux Files. And don't forget to subscribe to the Lux Files wherever you get your podcasts. And lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving me a review. Until next time.